So again, we're in the test.php file, and here's our query. So again, the 2 steps here is 1, getting a result set from the MySQL query function, which is an object that we can then pass to MySQL fetch array, which will then convert an individual record to an array that we can use, and we can loop through that to pull out all the different entries. In this case, we're hoping to pull out just a single result, so we don't really need a loop in order to go through all of the results. Now I want to point out how we're using quotes here, because those will come into play in our next step. We have a double quote here to indicate the beginning of our query, and then we use a double quote here before we start inserting some data inside of the query. That's data that we're pulling from the form that just got submitted. Before we close these quotes, we add a single quote here. And then when we begin the double quotes again to start our query again, we end that single quote. So when this gets rendered all together, there will be single quotes around whatever the user put in as the username. And we do the same thing for the password. But this strategy that we're using is flawed, because what happens if a user puts a single quote in their username or their password on purpose or on accident? Well, let's look at what happens there. So I'm going to jump to the browser. I'll go ahead and log out. And let's type admin, but we'll do a single quote at the end. And then we'll type in the correct password and click login. So we get this warning here that says MySQL fetch array supplied argument is not a valid MySQL result resource in, and then it tells us the line number where the problem's at. If we go back to the editor and look at line 21, we see that that's where our MySQL fetch array function is being run. But the error that it's throwing is telling us that this result variable is not what it would normally expect. It's looking for something that's returned from MySQL query when there's a successful result. It doesn't matter if there were any actual matches, this will still return a valid object that can be used in MySQL fetch array. So what this is telling us is that something is going wrong in MySQL query, and it's in that quote. That's where the problem is. Okay, so that warning doesn't seem so bad, but what this actually exposes is a major security flaw in your site. Someone can take this ability to change a query by using a quote and actually rewrite the query altogether. They can do something like log in even without knowing any passwords. They can reset the database altogether. They can use it to grab sensitive data from the database. Basically, anything that you can do with the database through a query, they can do simply by exploiting this flaw. And this is called a MySQL injection attack. Let's go ahead and do one ourselves. So I'm going to jump back to the resource pack directory, and let's open up the 5th step, which is called SQL injection and escaping strings. We'll copy the code and paste it over the code that's in the test.php file and save it. So here on line 19, we have the text that we need to paste into the password input in order to bypass the password check at all. So let's copy this. Notice that it's in double quotes, so we have a single quote at the beginning and a single quote at the end. And if we jump back to the browser and we type in admin for the username, and then we paste in that text for the password and click login, you see that we get a success message. We've been logged in and it says welcome admin. Now, we didn't actually input the admin's password, so this is a major problem. Now I've added the query to this output so we can see exactly what query got run once all of our dynamic data got pulled into it. And it says select all columns using the asterisk from people where the username equals admin and password equals something empty, or something empty equals something empty. Now this or keyword is something you haven't seen before, but basically what it says is that either this condition or this condition needs to be true. Whereas and says that this condition that comes before it and the condition after it needs to be true. So in this case, what it's saying is that either the password has to be empty, which it's not for any record that we have that has the username admin, or empty equals empty. And even though that looks a little bit weird, it's still true. Empty does equal empty. So because this passes, this condition gets ignored and we get in.